Okay, we're gonna go live now in a few.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Let's just a second, just a second. And we can go live.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon and good afternoon to Imbokodo across the whole nation, the world, wherever you are. I'd like to say welcome to you guys, especially to the women. And I'd also like to welcome all the gentlemen that are tuning in today in our live chat. I do hope you guys learn one or two things during the dialogue we have today. Before we do continue, I'd like to thank Thokozani Mahlangu, the CEO of Lerato Agency, and the actual owner of this very platform. Thank you so much for allowing us to share insights with women during this month of August, and I hope it will be a very prosperous month for all of us. Today, and I'll be your host. My name is Hazel Shozi. Ooh, I'm 28 years of age, and I have experience from agency as well as corporate, and currently working as a communications manager within the customer experience segment at MTN South Africa. And now to introduce you to a very, very special guest, Mathe Okaba. Yes. Mathe, guys, is a very seasoned business professional and entrepreneur with over 23 years. Whew, that's a lot. Across advertising, media, and sponsorship, as well as events industries. She started her career in advertising and progressed into media, where she spent a number of years at the SABC, eventually taking on a role as the general manager for the broadcaster's flagship station, SABC 3. Looking to spread her wings, Mathe moved on into the financial services industry as a senior sponsorship and events manager prior to actually exploring her own entrepreneurial abilities. So she launched a holding company that provided communication, design, media and some extra solutions to her clients. It is here where she actually focused on her core abilities, which was strategy development, execution, as well as business acquisition. Within the industry, growth is very paramount to Mathe, and therefore she encourages and is a very big driver and involves herself with smaller industries and players within our advertising and communication space. Mathe is currently working towards her MBA at the University of Roehampton in the UK. She holds a qualification in advertising from the School of Advertising, which is also known as AAA. She also earns a couple of certificates from Wits Business School as well as GIBS. Aha. So that is Mathe, guys, in a nutshell. It's actually a lot. I had to summarize this very wonderful profile of a woman. And I'd like to say welcome to you again, Mathe. Thank you for joining us today.
You know what I'm going to do? Sorry to interrupt you. My connection is really, really bad, so I'm going to leave and come back in. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
All right, I'm going to just exit. I will come back in. I just usually helps when I read.
It does. Awesome. See you in a bit. I'm thirsty already. Welcome back. Can you hear us?
Okay, I'm back.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you
Awesome.
perfectly.
Awesome. Perfect. So, Mathe, since it is a virtual call and we've never been privy to meeting before this call, I'd like to make sure by the time it ends, you know me and I know you better. So I think just to start up our conversation, I'm going to tell our audience a bit more about me and just very short and short. So I grew up in a township known to a very few as Gwandengezi. I was raised by a domestic worker. And let's just say fate and grace basically got me here. I was the last of 4 kids, and because my mom worked for a white family back in the times, and we weren't really privy to certain information. A lot of us probably would have been now, compared to then. So during a time when a black child was supposed to be, born in a certain place, raised in a certain place, you'd have to get married there, die there eventually, I was obviously exposed to English at a very young age because I obviously spent so much time Kamlungu, Kama, in Zulu. So I spent a huge part of my childhood journey with my mom, and experiencing life along with with her workers. And so every school holiday, every Christmas, every birthday that I had, I would receive 100 Rand notes in an envelope. And my mom would require me to actually write back to her workers to say thank you, to say how grateful I was, to say, what am I going to do with the money? All of that. And mind you, I was a young one. I mean, I was probably in primary. I was in grade 3 and stuff. So I started writing at a very early age. And just in summary, that is exactly how I ended up in communications. I decided to go for what I was strong at. I was strong at writing and reading. And I was like, you know what, let's go do communications. So this is me here and now. And I want to feed off and know your story, Mathe. Do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with us?
Oh my goodness. I've got lots to share. So I've got to compartmentalize it and package it and make it smaller.
Sure.
I grew up in the 70s, 80s. When I say that, you've got to say you don't look it. That's what you got to say. All right. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, but my mother was a hard worker. And her being, I was raised by my mother as a single parent, and which means she educated me. She ensured that I went to the right schools at the time, and I got the right education. And luckily, I was privileged enough to start school in a private school. So education for me, since grade 0 until matric, I was educated in private schools. So I was fortunate enough to get that kind of education and to get that one up. And not from an arrogance point of view, just from an education point of view. And with that trajectory, but I grew up in Soweto, born and bred. I was in the streets, and when there was strikes, we would wear our own uniform and not wear our school uniform to get into the school bus, and people would be stoning us. But that was our life, when we were growing up. But we still went to school because to our parents, education was very important because education was a thing that created access for you. And now I understand it when I'm sitting where I'm sitting right now. Had I not had that education, I wouldn't be where I am, all right? Thereafter, like you succinctly said, I went to the AAA School of Advertising, and I'm not a very studious kind of person. Right now, I'm trying to do my master's. It's the hardest thing on earth, So going to AAA was a good thing. I got an education and a post-matric education, but without having to go to university, all right? to be teachers, doctors, lawyers, nurses. Those were the career options that were available to us. And then I said to my mother, how? No, this is not going to happen. Then when I told my headmaster, we then had these career sessions. What are you going to do after matric? I was like, no, I'm going into advertising. And then he was like, that's a business for liars. Why would you go into a business for liars? I was like, because I want to be a professional liar, So that's what happened. So it was not seen. And my mother thought I was going to go and draw pictures. That's what my mother thought I was going to do. And she didn't understand it, but eventually I then did it. After doing it, I spent a good 7 years in the ad industry and a good 7 years as a media strategist, because strategy was my thing, research, numbers. I loved that kind of discipline. But then in the light of working on brands, multiple brands, working with different clients, the environment was still not ready for a great black girl, and was not ready for a great black girl because the K word was being used against me. And I'm not going to do any work because that K is not going to tell me what to do. This is white women who were talking like that. My boss, who was a white male, when it came to me reporting this, nothing was done about it. And I was like, who's ready for us? Nobody is ready for us. I was like, you know what, screw this. Let me go work with my people. And I then left and I went to work with my people at the SABC. And when I got there, I was so happy. It was an environment where 90% of the people who worked at the SABC were my skin color, Even in high positions, they were my skin color, And I'll give you a little anecdote that happened to me when I started at SABC 2. SABC 2 was a traditionally Afrikaans and Sotho station. Yes. And there were a lot of Afrikaans males in that environment. And they would get up, dit gaan, hierso Afrikaans. That's what they used to speak, all right? Because they were also exclusionary. Because they could see the days coming where the SABC will be 100% black, even in Afrikaans content. So they were very
defensive and they were fighting.
Yeah, and pushing you out there. One day I was like, okay, they put up Afrikaans presentations. I did my presentation in Sesotho and I put it up. Next time I had a meeting with those Afrikaans men, I spoke Sesotho in presenting that, to show them that not everybody, and it's not that I didn't understand Afrikaans. Afrikaans, remember, was always the language that, for my generation, was not the language that we wanted to be spoken to in. It's not a language that is part of my DNA. I'm against it. So why do you
continue
do that to me, understanding the history? So I was like, okay, I'll pull a Rainbow Nation on you. All 11 official languages. I will speak Sesotho with you in the boardroom. Let's see what happens now. And let's see if you understand. So for me, that then became the dynamics of the SABC. But eventually, the SABC, everywhere you turn, were people like us, But it was a great environment back in the day. Please, pre what you guys know now. It was a beautiful and creative environment where we created beautiful content. And when you look at it now, you might think it's not beautiful content, but back in the day, it was beautiful content. And it was content that reflect who we are as a people. And yes, some of it was a bit right-wing or a bit left-wing, but it was entertainment nonetheless, all right? Then I left the SABC, and then I went to a financial company. Ooh, those people are boring. Yeah. Anyway, in that environment, you know, when you're used to thinking out the box, pushing things, being creative, anything, the world is your oyster kind of thing. Then you get into this thing where there's a formula, and this is the formula, and stick within the formula. Then I had an aversion to that. It just did not work with my soul. It just, and also when things don't work with your soul in a certain environment, then you become this person who's seen as a non-performer, doesn't know what they're doing because
And
you're not
relax.
putting your best foot forward. It's like, oh, I hate going to work, and you still go to work. I hate. So if I can advise anybody anything, don't ever get into an environment where you don't enjoy it. Life is about enjoying what you do, because when you enjoy what you do, you become the best at what you do. But when you don't enjoy it, you do it with a sore heart. You know, every time you wake up, you're like, oh my God, do I have to go to work? You know? And that happened to me. I experienced that. Left Old Mutual. Then after leaving Old Mutual, and I left Old Mutual with no job. Please note. So I was like, okay, what do I do? I was like, oh, screw this. I'm going to take the little money that I have, and my daughter and I are going to travel the United States of America. So I took her, because I also lived there for a little bit. So I took her to the places that I lived in. I showed her around, and she was around 8 years old, 9 years old at the time. So I showed her around, and we drove from one state to another. So it was a fantastic 1 month trip that we did. Then I came back. When I came back, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had cancer. I'm a cancer survivor as I sit here. And that journey had to happen to me. The cancer journey had to happen to me. And I don't ever say, why did this happen to me? It had to happen to me in order for me to reflect on certain fundamentals in my life. Sure. And in that reflection process, it made me a better person. A better version of myself was birthed out of my cancer journey. So for me, that's why that journey, I give it a hug, I give it love, because it produced the Mathe you see today, and the better version of Mathe today. Oh. Then thereafter, struggling with cancer for 3 years, I then joined the ACA as the CEO of the ACA. It's the best job I've ever had. I don't want to lie to you. I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what I love. And I even say to people have offered me jobs in other places where they pay more money, but it's not about the money for me. It's always about, and I think going through a terminal illness, it reminds you, never do things for money. Always do things for the love of it. Always do things that make you grow inside, that make you blossom. Don't do things just for money, because money, you know when you've got it, and even if you get an increase of 20,000 Rand, that increase will never be enough in 6 months' time, because you get expenses that make up that extra 20,000 Rand, and you're not able to then say, okay, why am I here? You know? Because you hate your job, you hate what you're doing, but you've got the more money. You are depressed, you don't want to go to work. So money, joy is the solution. So I'm doing what I love right now, and I want to make a difference in my profession and in my industry. So that's my story. It was very long.
But it's a very beautiful story, man. So thanks so much for sharing that. It's really amazing, and I think we do celebrate women like you, and that's why we needed you on this platform. We want all those juices of, you know, that you just touched on now.
Yeah.
So I just want to jump into maybe just have the question of, you know, reaching level of success, you know, given the gender gap in the workplace, women being promoted on results versus men being promoted on, potential in leadership. I can just shed some light on, how is that journey? How has that been?
Journey is actually very real, because for as long, maybe because I've never been a woman per se, I'm always about excellence in what I do, all right? Did I get my opportunities based on the fact that it was me against a man? I've never been in that kind of situation. So can't even pretend to say, and all my bosses have been female. Most of my bosses, all my bosses have been female. Actually, when I track back, all my bosses have been female. So there's never been a situation where it's me against a boy or me against a man, and not a boy, but a man. It's never been that. It's always been, Mathe, what kind of work have you produced in your history? Oh my God, you've actually done amazing work. And when they compare it to my other colleagues that are saying, and I'll give SABC as an example, when they compared it to other people that were sitting on SABC 2, SABC 1, 3, they were like, oh my God, you do amazing work, And that's how then I was promoted to become the general manager of SABC 3, and I ran the channel. So for me, it's always been about the work, but I know that it does exist where men, just because he knows how to kumsha, he knows how to play golf, he knows how to smoke a cigar, he knows how to socialize better, he in the cigar with is the gatekeeper. Is the gatekeeper that can open. Whereas if I went out with the gatekeeper, it might be a different kind of story.
Yeah.
It would be
altogether.
Yes, because either it's about, am I flashing my boobs? Am I willing to sleep with the gatekeeper? Am I willing? Nah. Those are the things that emanate from being a woman, that happen when you are a woman, And it's really very sad because lots of us as women, and you look at what's happening in the world right now. Look at one country that is a woman in terms of this pandemic, New Zealand. What happened? What is the trajectory of that? But there are not enough women leaders globally. There are not enough women leaders because we are too emotional. We've got all these labels, and these labels that have been attached to us follow us wherever we go. As professionals, as mothers, as sisters, as wives, those labels follow us wherever we go. Sorry, I think I went off on another tangent.
No, that is so true. You made some very valid points, about the labels that come with it, and I think that then means that we have to work, twice as harder. Hopefully, these are things that we hope to see change in the coming years, and I think that's going to also help a lot of people watching today that, what do you do? Actually, let's take it to my next question, which is, as a leader, what have you seen as being the most significant barrier in your career? And if you were to offer advice to a younger you, what would it be? So I think just to add some meat onto that question is that I'm young and I don't have any mentor currently. And, some of these things you just learn as you go along the way. And I'll also get to that mentorship question, but I just want to know, as a leader, what are some of the, the barriers that you feel like you've met and you've been come across and you're able to actually just move them aside and actually try to, where you are now?
I think the first barrier is being a woman.
Sure.
That is the barrier. Because I'm not seen as an intelligent individual that can bring a type of business acumen, some business acumen on the table, and to lead an organization to be profitable, to lead an organization to be global. That's not when principals see me, and principals are usually men. Let's be honest with that.
Yep,
yeah. And when principals see me, they see a woman first before they see what can she do, what are her abilities. And then once I've superseded the fact that I'm a woman who can think and talk, and once I've gone over that, is how desperate am I to climb the career ladder? Am I desperate enough for my principals to say, Mathe, what about dinner tomorrow night? You know, am I that desperate? And I've had it happen to me. But because I'm a stubborn little angry black girl, what, all those labels, because I'm that,
Yeah.
it never got anywhere, you know? Because for me, it was like, once you cross that line, you become that person. And you will always be labeled, oh, shut up here because she slept with the CFO. You will always be that person. So understand when you cross that line, you can never go back. Because trust me, that man is not only talking to his friends about you, he's talking to everybody who's willing to listen. Okay. Sorry, I have a little daughter in my. Oh, okay. Who keeps on running? So, so we need to understand that once you cross that barrier, or that obstacle of who you want to define yourself as in the eyes of men, or in the eyes of then becomes a situation where you're known as that girl. You are known as, that's your label. And it will be your label forever. And you to shake off that label is going to be the hardest thing ever. So sexual harassment is a big thing in business. And men use that against us. Especially ambitious women. They use it against us. To say, all right, are you that ambitious? Oh, you want to be the next manager of sales?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what you need to do. Go out for dinner. We'll talk about it at dinner. You know, I will. Before I went to the States, I'll give you a little bit of a window into what happened to me. Before my company had awarded me a position in New York to go and work in New York. Before I left for that position in New York, the most senior person in the organization said to me, Mathe, we can fly first class together, and I will fly with you to New York, and we'll spend your first week there. I will show you around New York. I was like, what? Huh? And if I was utategile, I would have gone with it. Do you know what I'm saying? And had I gone it, the world would have been my oyster, but at an expense. At an expense. So I was like, no, I'm okay. I can sit like this. It's okay. I'll get to New York. I'll do what I need to do. Go work there and come back, and without first class, I don't need to experience the first trip. You're right. So these things happen all the time.
All the time. It's It's crazy, and I'm even just now thinking, you go through that nation from the top, and also experience it from the bottom now. The people that you're actually leading now.
Yeah.
Those who have misconceptions, what they think you are, what you present yourself to be, that you shouldn't because you're black. Hello, you need to remember, and I just want to chat to that, what are some of the misconceptions, you've kind of, seen from you being in leadership, what do people in leadership, is it positive, is it negative? As a black person, what kind of normal misconceptions do you deal with on it,
You want me to oust my black people, you?
I want to open the can.
Leadership is very, very tricky situation. And a tricky situation in the sense that when you're a leader, especially a black female leader, I'm about ensuring young black people are taught the right things, mentored the right way, grow in a profession or in our industry, and they're given the right place, all right? But then you come across a dynamic of, we are black.
Yeah.
Can you see that dynamic?
Yeah.
We are black, so you need to back me up, protect me, look after me, and do all of that whilst I do useless work. And for me, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah.
Because excellence, what makes you a good leader is producing people who produce excellent work. But if you're going to produce mediocre work, trust me, I will performance manage you, I will fire you. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter the fact that you're black. And it doesn't matter that your mother was my mother. Doesn't matter. All right? I'm a leader in my own right. I have my own integrity. I have my own reputation to build. And if I don't do that,
Yes.
sorry, my daughter's going out. So,
I
yeah.
love your daughter.
So I've got to make sure and ensure